All right, let's get to the only other division really that's kind of still up for grabs. I guess you could say the NFC North is up for grabs with the way the Vikings are playing, but the one that's still hotly contested, but maybe not trending that way, the Bucks and the Falcons going in completely opposite directions. Bucks blow out the Raiders 28-13, while the Vikings blow out the Falcons 42-21. Is this one just over? I mean, at this point, I think the Falcons look like the worst team in the NFC South. I know they had the best record going into this week, but I would take the Saints and the Panthers right now. If we're playing at neutral fields, those two teams look better the way they played the past few weeks.
I don't even think you need to go to the neutral field the way both the Saints and the Panthers took the Eagles to the wire at the link today, right? When you look at it, and I was one that was very adamant last week saying that Raheem Morris has to take a look in the mirror, and he also has to know the temperament of his team, because the Kirk Cousins that we've seen for the last 4 weeks has not been the guy that we saw in Minnesota. Right now, there was speculation that Kirk maybe wasn't healthy because for some odd reason, Zach Robinson kept having him in pistol. We all know Kirk Cousins is one of the best play-action passers in the league. And to do that effectively, you got to be under center, right? There has to be a real threat of run. Now, when you saw that first drive, Mike, I was like, oh, he's back. Yeah. He's going back to Minnesota. He's going to show them that you should have paid me. I mean, again, under center, Bijan Robinson, Tyler Algier, zone game, working to a T, play action pass, hitting Mooney across the middle. Like, it was there. It looked good the first drive. And then it just went away. Like, it was just like a magic trick. Again, I don't know if that was because it was the first 15 scripted, but after that, it just did not look good. Kirk Cousins' first interception was just utterly ridiculous. Quarterbacks know when they usually pump fake and they feel like something isn't there, you usually go with your first mind, right? You don't want to continue to still throw the ball after you realize I shouldn't throw this ball. Well, he literally stared down Josh Metellus, pump faked it because he's like, I shouldn't throw it, and then threw it anyway. And it got picked. Like, it obviously is getting picked off. Like, and then later on, an overthrow, Byron Murphy with a heck of a one-handed catch. And I think Ray McCloud's fumble was big, because it seemed like the Falcons were starting to catch some momentum, and then Ray McCloud fumbles it. And then, Sam Darnold on that offense, you're only going to keep them down for so long. I thought the Atlanta Falcons defense played really good in the first half. People have been talking about their pass rush. It's come alive the last few weeks, right? We saw Arnold Ebiketie get in the backfield. Yeah, we saw Eddie Goldman get a sack as well. So they were harassing Sam Darnold. You also got to give some respect to him because he made some plays with his mobility on platform, getting out of the pocket. That touchdown pass to Justin Jefferson, I mean, they sent all-out blitz, and he made about 3 guys miss, and Justin Jefferson was wide open, and he found him in the back for a touchdown. So if I'm the Atlanta Falcons, I'm going to say this one more time. Like, you had a 3-game lead in this division, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have just walked you down. Right? They've literally, since the bye, have not lost. And it's been the opposite. You haven't won. So if you're Raheem Morris, again, you have to know the temperature of your team. And if they start to get some whispers in there and saying, man, we've seen this young kid spin it in practice, he's able to actually move and evade some rush, maybe we give him a shot because we're still in this thing, right? Because we have the tiebreaker over the Bucs. We beat them twice already, right? And that was the last time we actually saw Kirk play like Kirk Cousins. So it'll be an interesting week for the Atlanta Falcons. I know a lot of people that live in Atlanta. I know a lot of people that work in sports radio in Atlanta, and the rumor mill has been going in regards to giving Michael Penix Jr. a chance. Like, you took him in the top 10 for this exact reason, in case Kirk Cousins wasn't 100% healthy, right? And he was going to be the guy of the future. So again, Raheem Morris, this is going to be a big week for him.
I was going back and forth for a while on the Penix conversation, and I hate putting that kind of pressure on a rookie. But we are at the point in the season where now it's not really pressure because you're not in first place anymore. It's not pressure to hold on to a lead. It's just you're playing with house money. If you don't make the playoffs, you weren't making the playoffs anyways with Kirk Cousins. And you got a long week here. You got Monday Night Football is your next game. And again, it's against the Raiders. It's not like you're going into what we just went through. And in Kirk Cousins' defense, he had to face the Broncos, the Chargers, the Vikings the past 3 weeks. But it gave you the sort of litmus test to know that those are 3 defenses you're going to have to beat come playoff time. And there is no way in hell that they're beating any of those defenses come playoff time. They're just not. So even if you do sneak in, because you got an easy schedule coming in here. You got Raiders, Giants, Commanders, Panthers. So it's semi-easy schedule. You should be favored in 3 of those games.
That Commanders and Panthers game is going to be tough.
But yeah, maybe not the way the Panthers are playing at this point. So favored at least 2 of those. So it's semi-easy. Yeah. Like you should be able to right this ship in some way, shape, or form. But you got a very good idea of how your team looks and stacks up against real deal playoff teams. And it is not even close, is what I saw the past 3 weeks, unfortunately, for Falcons fans. So then at that point, you are playing with house money if you put in Michael Penix. He doesn't have any pressure, and all he can do is play the same level as Kirk or worse. And it's like, well, you weren't making the playoffs with Kirk, unfortunately. So, yeah, I think I'm at the point where I'd be willing to do it. He's played a ton of football. Michael Penix isn't, a 3-year – this isn't Mitch Trubisky coming out after 1 year of college. The guy was 6 years in college, 5 years as a starter, ton of football under his belt, one of the most pass-heavy offenses in college football last year, played in the playoff. Like, there's no reason that this guy couldn't at this point rise to the occasion if he's the guy. Yeah. So I think it's time.
Yeah, again, especially with the way the offensive line is blocked as of late in regards to the run game. So, like, he'll be able to lean on that run game, right? And Michael Penix has been known to carve people up down the field and down the seams, right? And that would be perfect for this Zach Robinson offense. So, again, this is a big week. Maybe to the point that you made, because the schedule is light, maybe they do stick it out with Kirk because they're like, to your point, like we played the Denver Broncos, right? We played the Minnesota Vikings. These are 2 of the top defenses. We played the Chargers. These are like 2, 3 of the top like 5 or 6 defenses in all football. But that's why you brought Kirk Cousins in, to beat those teams. Like, so like you're saying, you're playing with house money. You took a guy number 8 overall. You might as well see what he is, because like you said, you're not in first place anymore. You've allowed the Tampa Bay Bucks to walk you down, right? At worst, you're not going to make the playoffs, and you get to see what Michael Penix is like under center. Yeah, I kind of spoke about it a little bit, but I'll just go more into detail on it. I think the Atlanta Falcons have to take a hard look in the mirror right now, because, again, when you're 6-3 and you have a 3-game lead and you allow a team to essentially walk you down, a team that has been massacred with injuries at that in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and yet Liam Cohen has still been able to get the most out of the offense, whether it's using 2 backs now because he knows he doesn't have as many playmakers on the outside. And Baker Mayfield, even though he did have those 2 interceptions today, consistently, nobody's better in quick game than him getting the ball out. I think if you're Raheem Morris, you have to really figure out the temperature of your locker room, right? Because now this is a 4-game skid, and now we're a game back in the division where we had a significant lead around week 10 of the season. And now we're on the outside looking in, and our quarterback has not played well. Right? Is he healthy? Is he not? Is this a mental thing for Kirk Cousins? Like, I think Greg Olsen, who does a masterful job calling games, brought up a really good point today. Like, it's one thing if you're a veteran quarterback and you've been somewhere, like you've kind of built up that camaraderie. You've built up that layer of trust where if you go through a skid, guys are like, man, he'll fight his way out of this because he's been around. We know him. We've seen it. It's a lot different when you're a free agent and you go somewhere new. You haven't really built up that rapport with that team. So, like, guys on that team, that have been there, or even guys that are coming there for the first time, they just want to win right now. Now, again, this is the NFL, and everybody, I don't say everybody goes through ups and downs. They do go through ups and downs. I don't know how many people go through skids like this that Kurt is going through, especially when you've played at a high level before. And, their old rumor always says, like, when it goes bad, right? So, like, you hope that's not what's happening with Kirk Cousins. But if I'm Raheem Morris, like, again, to your point, Mike, they're playing the Raiders, and I want to say you said the Giants on that schedule. Like, to me, this is a perfect time to put Michael Penix Jr. in the game, right? So he can get his confidence. You can lean on that run game. We saw it today versus the Minnesota Vikings. Like, Bijan Robinson is one of the best games I've seen him play this year, right? Tyler Algier is going to be Mr. Steady Eddie. He's always going to run downhill and be physical. Like, he can lean on the run game, and and Michael Penix, with that lively arm that he has, now maybe you can stretch the field a little bit more when you can take shots down the field with Drake London, and you can really kill the middle of the field with Darnell Mooney, right? Kyle Pitts, again, terrible concentration drop today, but maybe you get him more involved as well. So, to me, my thing is you got to really take a hard look in the mirror and consider putting Michael Penix Jr. in to essentially save your season. And I get what you're saying, Mike. Like, that's a tough place to put a rookie in. But to me, like you said, I think you're playing with house money right now, because it was one thing when you were on top of the division in front. That's no longer the case, right? So most rookies that go in the first round, especially in the top 10, this is around the time they play anyway, the last 4 weeks of the season, right? So, like, again, you have to know Kirk Cousins personally, what you do. You have to know where his mental is like, right? And you also need to know what the mental of your team is like, because things can unravel fast when you're 6-3, and then all of a sudden you're out of the playoff mix. So my thing is, I would literally take a hard consideration to play Michael Penix Jr. this week versus the Raiders.
It would be one thing if Kirk was just, 31 years old on a new team and going through struggles the way he is. But he's 36, coming off an Achilles, and his arm is legitimately not the same. I think anyone who's watched him over his career can say he does not have the same arm strength he had prior to the Achilles tear. And it's like,
correct.
We've seen this over, Matt Ryan with the Colts, Philip Rivers with the Colts. He could keep naming guys with the Colts, but like the arm strength, when it goes, you are not the same quarterback. And that's the biggest thing, is that when you lose a little bit, it's difficult to adjust mentally to that lost arm strength. And you still make throws as if you have the same arm you did prior. In the NFL, it's like the margin for error is so slim that you can't have that. And you're seeing it on the football field week in and week out. So I don't think there's a rebound, at least this season. Now, maybe, a year and a half removed from an Achilles, he may gain some of that back with some strength training, the more he can do with it. Sure, you can make an argument that he could be back next year, but I don't think there's any argument to be made that he is good enough to get you through a playoff, even one playoff game this year. At that point, you might as well try.